Welcome in, everybody. Just getting set up. I think I'm doing pretty good for a one-man operation here. All right. And welcome, everybody. Will here. On today's episode, this little podcast, I will be doing this in the vertical as well as the regular full studio version. That way, it seems like I get a little bit of audience from different places. The full video generally gets it from my original subscribers, and the vertical gets people just from random locations. Welcome in. Today, I'm talking about Federico Fagan and the Itzhak Bentov connection. Fagan's mentioned on my channel a lot. In fact, I just got another comment the other day, and I do appreciate any of the comments that you guys put on my channel. If you're watching a video and you're seeing something, you're wondering, you're thinking about something, if you have a question, throw it out there. I'll be glad to do the research for you, give you my honest opinion, and everything I've got about that. I wanted to just put a welcome in kind of message for these people. They're kind of floating in and out of here. I will be uploading this in its entirety, and then I'll probably be, I have a YouTube short that's kind of linking to it as well. I try to do these one a day, and it can be varied in subject, just kind of depending on what I'm seeing at the time. A lot of it's based off the comments from the community. This one specifically, it just reminded me that of the connections. And in fact, I had to go back and do kind of a bigger deep dive on Federico Fagan. It's been a while since I've done any serious research on him, where he's at with his beliefs, his thoughts, and that kind of stuff. So we're going to discuss that a little bit today. We're going to discuss kind of who Federico was. If you're new to the channel, I'll explain who Itzhak Bentov was a little bit, and how they're similar, and that kind of stuff. So let's just get started. So Federico Fagan is a engineer, just like Itzhak Bentov. His specialty was in the computation field, microprocessors, that kind of stuff. He actually laid the grounding foundation for the processor. I believe it was in 2000. Not going way back. This was a while ago, so I'd have to do some more research on that one. But going back, his field, like I said, these were really high level, very intelligent people. Itzhak Bentov and Federico Fagan. Now, as far as we know, they never met. There's never a reference for each other directly anywhere. I believe Fagan's still alive. I'm not sure. I would love to ask him that. Fagan, if you watch my channel ever, anybody knows Fagan, ask him if he ever met Itzhak Bentov and what his beliefs are. Because there's a lot of ideas. A lot of the ideas are side by side, and there's some parallels, but some of them are a little different, and we're going to go into that here pretty soon. So Itzhak Bentov, who people don't know who Itzhak Bentov was, he was a self-taught inventor, engineer, consciousness research scientist. He helped design early cardiac catheter. He was a real high-level intelligent person. He did most of his work back in the 60s and 70s, and Federico Fagan did a lot of his work later on. Itzhak Bentov was big into vibrations, oscillations, the oscillatory system, the body. He wrote a book called Stalking the Wild Pendulum. He also wrote a book called The Cosmic Book. And in there, he's kind of explains how what's going on inside us and what we see is kind of reflected in the universe, and talks about universal fields and that kind of stuff. So and I have to look at my notes here because I don't know if Federico Fagan as well as I know Itzhak Bentov, so I'm going to have to be looking over here. He's best known really as being an inventor for the first commercial microprocessor. But later in his life, Fagan began exploring consciousness from a scientific and philosophical standpoint. In his book, Irreducible, he argues that consciousness cannot be explained purely through classical physics or computation. He suggests that subjects' experience awareness itself is fundamental to reality. we talked about that a little bit. I think that's what we're going to talk about a little bit in the next week or two. Cypantism, I think that's the word that they use, where that's a belief that's shared here about how conscious is in everything. And some of this gets mixed up, and some of these scientists have their own very unique belief in that. So, welcome in. Um, Going back to, let's talk about some of their parallels. This is where things get interesting because where they're years apart, they're solid engineers who, as far as we can see, never even talk to each other. This is like two people in a cave on the other side of the world, and what they came out with was very similar, like a lot of it. And but we're going to go over the parallels, and then we'll go over kind of some of the differences and that kind of stuff. So Bentov and Fagan both started as high-level engineers. Both worked with systems, mechanical, electrical, informational. Both eventually reached similar philosophical conclusions. Bentov described reality as oscillatory and holographic, and Fagan describes reality as conscious and informational at its root. Bentov believed consciousness interacts with physical systems through resonance and synchronization. Fagan believes consciousness interacts with physical systems through information and experience. Bentov does believe, he talks about experience and living the life and that enlightenment. Different languages, similar directions is kind of what we're saying here. And neither approach this with mysticism. A lot of people say, oh, this was a hoax or whatever. There is no mysticism here at all. They approached it with engineering and observation. That's why their work is still around. They also had two things I always talk about on this channel. They had sheer determination and love for the game. And that's how you get past a lot of this hard math and science. It seems to cut just sheer right through it when you find what we're seeing here at Pyle Advanced Research is a lot of it when you have people that study systems, they understand a concept that we are in a system, and the variables in different systems of this system might make other systems. And you can see how easy it is for Federico Fagan and Itzhak Bentov, coming from a systems background as engineers, to approach this a very unique and special way. And I think that they had kind of put in a section here just why this matters. Okay, well, what do we get out of this? What does it matter? What happens is when you have two independent inventors from different generations and disciplines arrive at related conclusions about consciousness, it raises important questions. Are we moving toward a scientific model where consciousness is fundamental? Is reality better understood as informational and experiential rather than purely material? Does technical work eventually lead researchers toward the same philosophical horizons? This is what I got. This is Bentov and Fagan may never have collaborated, but their ideas definitely two pieces of an emerging framework. Bentov, we talked about it on one of our last episodes, talking about the enlightened model, something that he was kind of working on. They had very similar realizations too. I can't speak too much more on Fagan. Like I said, I have not done enough research on the man. I know that I get a lot of comments on this channel about him, his ideas. I wanted to see what was common, what was different. I think if they had had a chance to collaborate a little bit, I think we as a society would have gained a little bit from it. I wonder what would happen. I would have loved to have seen that. Like I said, Bentov did his work way earlier and died in 79. His big book came out in 77, Stalking the Wild Pendulum. Fagan's was much, much later. Fagan didn't even get really into consciousness study till way late in his life, where Bentov from earlier is all I'm going to say. We have no exact numbers, so I don't, have any idea what age these people did some of this stuff. But what we got, that's what we got. So I do appreciate you guys coming here today. This was kind of a spur of the moment thing. I woke up this morning, was checking some comments. I saw that, some people had put put some comments on some of the videos, and I always read them. I always like to reply to them if I can, if I have something that would actually contribute, or add something to it. And like I said, Fagan is definitely one that I see in the comments, and it's for good reason. His work, people ask me my personal opinion about Fagan, and since this is my podcast, I hope he does not, take any disrespect of this as a scientist. His work is fundamental. I think the knowledge that man holds is unreal. With that said, two things come across every time I've seen him at a lecture or heard him. One, he gets almost angry when people ask him questions. It almost seems like it's beneath him, or what he's saying you're not accepting, so you're asking not accepting the fact or the reality of it. And at this point, I feel like he believes what he believes so strongly that he's beyond trying to refine that and release it. He's really trying to convince people that what he has and what it is 100% correct. And I've got a problem with that. I've got a problem with that when anybody says that stuff, or I get that it's like a red flag. It's kind of like, even if you had something solid, like you built an airplane from scratch, you would still refine that as a person, as a society. You'd still work on that. But when you come to some serious conclusions and you build something, a model, a structure, a theory, and you're just set on it, and instead of working on it, you're out there trying to convince other people. Generally, it's kind of a red flag for me, and Fagan is one of those people. I don't know if some of the work, you can tell he has a love and a passion for it, just in the way that he talks. But I'm going to wrap this up for today. This is just want to make that short video. I will be on later doing the meditation tonight. That's going to be at 9 o'clock Eastern. I will put the times and everything down when I finish these videos and upload them. I do want to thank everybody for being here today. If you have any questions, if you have another scientist you want me to look into, definitely put them down below. If you want to do anything for this channel, make sure you hit like and subscribe. Please go look at my ebooks. I put a ton of effort into them, and I'm giving some of them away free right now. Links will be down in the description. As always, you guys have a beautiful day.